Something has just completely snapped in the Middle East. A sudden, violent shift has taken place, and it's put some of the world's most famous cities right in the crosshairs. Okay, let's dive into what's happening.
You know, for decades, when you heard the Gulf, you thought of these incredible skylines, unbelievable luxury, and a hub for global business. Well, that whole picture? It's been shattered. Literally overnight, it's been replaced by the sound of explosions and air raid sirens.
And we're not talking about some remote desert outposts here. Look at this list. These are major global hubs, centers of finance, travel, and culture. And they are now under direct missile and drone attack. The entire region is holding its breath.
This right here, this is what makes it so real, and honestly, so terrifying. This isn't some abstract conflict happening far away. Eyewitnesses are talking about seeing smoke billowing from the world-famous Palm Jumeirah. The very symbols of the Gulf's modern success are now targets.
So, how in the world did we get here? How did this firestorm just erupt out of nowhere? Well, it all boils down to one single, dramatic event. An event that triggered a massive, and what looks like a pre-planned, response from Iran.
Here's the trigger. A joint U.S.-Israeli operation reportedly killed Iran's supreme leader. And Iran's response was swift and overwhelming. They unleashed a huge wave of retaliatory strikes, not just at the U.S. or Israel, but at their allies all across the Gulf.
And you can see just how deliberate this was. This wasn't chaos. It was a plan. First, they went for the obvious military targets, U.S. bases, but then they widened the net to embassies, then to the economic jugular, the energy infrastructure, and finally to civilian centers like airports and hotels.
To get a sense of the sheer scale of this, just look at this number. The UAE alone tracked over 800 Iranian drones in its airspace. Now, their air defenses have been working like crazy, and they've intercepted most of them, but the sheer volume of this assault is just staggering.
So this really pulls back the curtain on Iran's game plan. They aren't just trying to cause military damage. By hitting airports, five-star hotels, and the world's biggest liquefied natural gas facilities, the message they're sending is crystal clear. If we get hit, the entire region's economy is going to burn with us.
Which brings us to the absolutely impossible position the Gulf states now find themselves in. They are completely stuck in a dangerous dilemma, a real damned if you do, damned if you don't scenario.
I mean, you can just hear the anger in this quote from a Gulf official. Publicly, they are furious. Their sovereignty has been violated, their cities have been attacked, their people are in danger. They're making it clear that every single red line has been crossed.
So here's the bottom line. This is the impossible choice they're facing. On one hand, if they hit back, they risk sparking a full-blown regional war that could absolutely devastate their countries. But on the other hand, if they do nothing, they look weak. Their security is shattered, and all that investor confidence they spent decades building could just evaporate. It's a horrible choice.
And this is the terrifying genius of Iran's strategy. They've taken the UAE's greatest strength, its hard-won reputation as the safe, stable oasis for business and tourism, and turned it into its greatest weakness. An attack on a Dubai hotel isn't just an attack on a building, it's an attack on their entire economic model.
And look, this isn't just a regional problem. Not by a long shot. The consequences are already spilling out way beyond the Middle East, and the ripples are already hitting the rest of us, hard.
Okay, check out this number, 200. We're talking about massive commercial ships that have literally just dropped anchor and are refusing to enter the Strait of Hormuz. That's about a fifth of the world's oil supply that has suddenly stopped moving. It's a traffic jam that's brought a huge chunk of global trade to a screeching halt.
And here's what that traffic jam looks like in your wallet. These aren't projections. This is what's already happened. A massive spike in energy prices across the board. European natural gas shot up by 50%. That's not a small bump. That's a massive shock to the system.
Now, what's really fascinating here is seeing who gets hurt the most by this. 60%. Think about that. More than half of all the oil powering Asia's biggest economies, we're talking Japan, India, China, it all comes from right here, from the middle of this firestorm. This is a huge threat to an already fragile global economy.
So, where does all this go from here? Well, these attacks have forced a complete, and I'm sure very painful, reckoning for the Gulf states. It's like the entire rulebook for how to survive in the region just got tossed into a bonfire.
You know, for years, the region ran on this complex web of back-channel deals and very careful diplomacy. The UAE had a sort of gentleman's agreement with Iran.
Oman was famously a friend to all, a neutral mediator. Well, these attacks have shattered all of that. It seems that being neutral just isn't an option anymore.
All right, so let's boil this all down. First, one targeted strike kicked off this massive regional firestorm. Second, Iran deliberately escalated its targets to hit economies and civilians. Third, this has left the Gulf states stuck in an impossible trap. Fourth, because of all that, the global economy is taking a direct hit. And finally, the entire security playbook for the Middle East is now being rewritten by force.
And that leaves us with this huge, unsettling question. The old way of doing things, all that careful diplomacy, it's been demolished overnight. And what's left is this terrifying void. So the real question isn't just what happens next, it's who will get to write the new rules for a Middle East where the old ones no longer apply.